Hello, YNABers. My name is Jesse Meekum, and this is podcast number 454 for YNAB, where we teach you 4 rules to help you stop living paycheck to paycheck, get out of debt, and save more money. We went back and did a little bit of research and asked people what their favorite podcasts were. And one podcast that rose to the top was where I interviewed Ramit Sethi quite a while ago. He's the author of I Will Teach You to Be Rich. And it was a couple years ago, for sure. Well, we are pleased to tell you now that we have had him back. And I kind of let loose. Instead of having the normal, maybe 20-minute interview that we do if we have a guest on, Ramit and I went for over an hour. And I kept thinking things like, I got to wrap this up. And then we would get into some new topic. Anyway, it was an absolute pleasure. And we could both just kind of kick things back and forth. It's a very casual conversation. I don't interview in this way where we're just kind of lockstep. We kind of go with the flow. And Ramit naturally is very good at that. So I wanted to read to you Ramit's bio to make sure I get this right. I know him very well. And he and I have kind of observed each other over the years, started our businesses about the same time. And he's given me very good advice over the years. But you may not know Ramit. So here he is. Ramit Sethi is the author of the New York Times bestseller, I Will Teach You to Be Rich. I will say, as an insert, it's very entertaining. It's a very entertaining personal finance book, and that is not easy to accomplish. Ramit has become a financial guru to millions of readers in their 20s, 30s, and 40s. He started his website, iwillteachyoutoberich.com, as a Stanford undergrad in 2004. I also started YNAB in 2004, and he now hosts over 1 million readers per month on his blog, newsletter, and social media. Ramit grew up in Sacramento, the son of Indian immigrant parents who taught him the art of negotiating. His father once spent 5 days negotiating with a car dealer, only to walk away over a set of floor mats. He wasn't the smartest kid in his class, but he loved building systems, which ultimately earned him over $200,000 in scholarships. He has a pretty cool story that I'm sure he's written about in the past on that. He used that scholarship to get a bachelor's and master's degree in technology and psychology at Stanford. His understanding of human behavior and money led him to creating innovative solutions in self-development. Ramit and his team of dozens of employees build premium digital products about personal finance, entrepreneurship, psychology, careers, and personal development for top performers. The I Will Teach community includes 1 million monthly readers, 400,000 newsletter subscribers, and 35,000 premium customers. He has written about personal finance for the Wall Street Journal, the New York Times, and has been interviewed on dozens of media outlets, including NPR, ABC, CNBC, and popular podcasts like the Tim Ferriss podcast. And might I add, the You Need a Budget podcast. You can follow Ramit on Twitter, and he's pretty active on Instagram as well. So that's Ramit's full bio, and I was trying not to interject there constantly with my own commentary. It's just a really fun interview. I actually did a little bit of work for y'all, and I went back through the interview to kind of give you some bullet points over what we discussed. As I was going through this, moments before this recording, it just kept going and going and going. I don't want to bore you with this list, but I also want you to see what you are in for as far as the interview goes. So here's a little bit of what we cover. The value of like-minded people to give you critical feedback versus surrounding yourself with people that just tell you what you would like to know. How a group of like-minded business owners for me helped me realize I wasn't crazy when I was dealing with a personnel issue. Why you've got to understand the why of getting into business for yourself. And then I counter with maybe you can find your why along the way, and it doesn't have to be huge and world-changing to change your world. The people you surround yourself with will change your thinking, and this is for better or worse. We talk a little bit about what a rich life means, where there's no right answer to that. And also how you tend, once you've won at something, you tend to start to try and stay safe, play it safe, things you know, versus taking risks. And those risks are what got you to that place in the first spot. We talk about the leading reason, and Ramit has seen this thousands of times, the leading reason that side hustles fail or at least fizzle, and how a single email that he receives gives him the first clue that that person is bound for failure. He actually said that success is far more nuanced. So I kind of say, well, how do you make sure that when you purchase something, you aren't using that to kind of prove that you're serious, but you're actually taking action, that purchasing isn't the action? And then we also talk about how to do business and not play business. I share a pretty funny story that my dad shared with me a while ago. We talk about testing ideas, how to make sure that people are actually paying you, not just telling you that they would pay you. Why so few people actually want mentors, the difficulty in actually building a meaningful mentor relationship, and how to do that if you actually do want one. We talk a lot about in the mentor space and then the expert space, how to just take the doctor's prescription and kind of choosing your doctor, coach, professional, whatever it is, and just saying, I'm going to do this. I'm done questioning. And finally, like, I'm going to change my mentality from I'm a teacher. I know things. I help my friends with things. I'm always full of good advice to like, I am a student, and how to really back that up and humble yourself so that you are ready to learn. We talk about lifelong learning. I share a pretty cool story about my 95-year-old granddad. And we talk about random stories around purchasing domain names that are very short, like iwt.com or YNAB.com. Basically, why you should try and learn things forever. And then finally, embracing the start, how it's really nice, almost beautiful to be a beginner. So in this, I start off with Ramit pitching his product. It's called Earnable. And you are welcome if you're saying, oh, I don't come to YNAB for a pitch. That's totally fine. You're welcome to jump ahead, I don't know, a minute or two, and then just enjoy the rest of the interview. And then at the very end, I tell Ramit, tell everyone where you can learn more about Earnable, and it's at iwt.com/earn. Again, if you don't want to hear that pitch because you're set, then that's totally fine. We don't pitch products on this podcast, but Ramit the interview is so valuable, and what he shares is just so forthright and honest, and he's been in the trenches for so many years. I couldn't help but have him on again. What he gave as far as advice goes 2 years ago clearly resonated with people. And he has 2 more years of data and research and anecdotes and refinements that he's brought to the podcast today. So without further ado, because there was much ado about this podcast, here is my interview with Ramit Sethi. Well, I want to ask you, one is you launched years ago a product called Earn 1K. Is Earnable V2, 3, or 10 of Earn 1K?
Earnable is the brand new business program for I Will Teach You to Be Rich. Okay. And it includes all the stuff we've talked about in the past and much more, and it's completely modernized. All those programs are now gone.
Oh, cool. Okay, so describe for me then, we're gonna do like an end around. Describe for me the ideal customer, the person that you're like, this person, above all else, this person needs to check this out.
If you have thought about starting a business for a long time, if you've thought about creating more income, but you don't have an idea, and you're reading blog after blog, newsletter after newsletter, and following all these coaches on social media, that's a good sign that Earnable can help you. If you want ultimate and ultra specifics, for example, you don't want someone telling you, here are 3 ways to get better at sales. You actually want to listen to me doing real sales calls and analyze what I'm doing and why, then Earnable could be good for you. And finally, if you want to do it with a community, with other entrepreneurs who are going through it, you don't want to do it alone, then Earnable would be great for you.
Awesome. I'm in a CEO group that over the last 5 years, I've found tremendous value in that. What value have you seen personally as you've participated in groups, and then kind of more broadly as people surround themselves with like-minded entrepreneurs? My one concern, and this is probably a straw man that I'm setting up here, but sometimes you will surround yourself with people that will delude you, right? And so it's comforting in a non-productive way. So maybe speak to that false dichotomy that I set up for you.
Well, I first of all completely agree. Earlier this morning, I spent 2 hours on a council call with a small council of a few other CEOs that I'm a part of. And we speak regularly every 6 weeks. We get together regularly. I think the more you grow in your business, the more that it becomes important to surround yourself with those people. I think early on, it is lonely when you're thinking about finding an idea. It's really lonely. You have too many ideas. You don't have any ideas. You feel alone. You start spinning in your head. And to have someone else who you can even bounce ideas off of, that's valuable. The next level of that is to find people who actually have some experience, who know what they're talking about. You're right that if it's just your cousin, they're going to tell you, that sounds great, go do it. For example, I love to iron clothes. If I go ask somebody who I love, hey, what do you think? Is that a good idea? Like, yeah. There's a lot of people who want to iron clothes. No, there's not. Especially in America, nobody cares, okay? Yeah. Walking around with these disgusting wrinkled clothes. None of you know how to iron. It's infuriating. Yeah. However, I need to find other people who will challenge me. And they can do it politely, but they can say, okay, Ramit, who would your target customer be? And then I would say, oh, these people with these disgusting wrinkled clothes. Oh my God, 100% cotton. They don't even know what they're doing. And then they say, okay, Ramit, well, when you used to wear wrinkled clothes, would you have paid for a course on ironing? And then I would say, no, but it's different now. And then they would say, Ramit, are you being honest, or are you deluding yourself? Mm-hmm. And that right there, that support, that person is not being mean. They're just pushing me gently. That question that they asked me could have saved me 9 months and $20,000 of going down the wrong path. That is the value of surrounding yourself with people who can push you.
Yeah. Yeah. And the more experience they have, the more they'll kind of appreciate the struggle, and there can be some empathy there as they probe and gently push back.
And you and I have done that too. I remember walking in New York and talking about our businesses, and we've both been through it. We've been doing it for a long time, and talking about our teams and our products. And there's a shared understanding that we both go through, but we also recognize that our experiences are also different. And that's powerful, to be vibing with someone and to know that they respect you and you're listening, and I can ask you for advice. That is incredibly powerful.
Yeah. One of my favorite things that happened out of my my CEO group, I had never fired anyone, and I needed to. And I was at this big meeting, and it was kind of like, okay, stand up if you think you should fire someone. And so probably half the room stands up, because it's not uncommon. And to kick the can down the road, because that's not fun. So I stand up, and the speaker, very dramatically, he's like, okay, everyone's standing. By noon tomorrow, you need to have taken care of this. Like, you're torturing the person that you're not letting go of. Like, they know this is bad, it's bad. And my stomach just dropped. So I walk over to my group during a break, like the gentleman that I'm in the group with, more intimately. And I'm new to this group still. And they're like, hey, Jesse, what do you think about the speaker? And I kind of say, well, I'm really worried that when I fire this person, like I'm worried that they'll, and one guy's like, stab you. And I'm like, well, and another guy's like, oh, I had one of those. Like, all of a sudden I was talking with these guys, they're like, I thought a guy was going to shoot me one time when he worked at like this big foundry. And I just had this relief where I was having crazy thoughts, because they were crazy, but it was a relief to know that other people had those crazy thoughts, and it was probably going to be fine.
First of all, just hearing you talk about that is so visceral for any founder or leader who's had to do that, because it's painful for you. It's even more painful for the person on the receiving end of that.
Yeah.
I think what you described to me, the reason it feels so primal is that deep down, we feel alone in doing this. And that relief of realizing I'm not alone, that there are other people who are either going through it or have gone through it. And just the fact that they can share their stories, it's so comforting.
Yeah.
And that's the same thing when you're building a business. You can read all about all these tactics and how you need to get on Pinterest and Instagram and all this stuff. But when you're sitting there saying, like, how am I going to get people to come to my website or follow me on social media or buy a product? I don't know how to sell. I feel so scared. And then you can be around other people who have done that, and you can learn and watch people actually doing sales calls and see the words to use in your emails. Suddenly it's such a relief. And that primal need to not be alone is as deep as it comes.
Yeah. One of the things that you're big on, and I mean, I've watched you for I don't know how many years now, so well over a decade, and we've kind of we've been able to kind of observe each other. One of the things that I know you're big on is going deeper on, well, essentially anything. You, in your book, I Will Teach You to Be Rich, you're kind of going into the why of why are you doing this? Like, what's the bigger purpose? When you're going into business, my guess is you have the same, that you're bent that way still, like going to that foundational level. Why do you want people to understand the why? You got somebody that's working a job, maybe they're making 80 grand a year, and you think, hey, just follow the advice in your book. They'll be fine there too. I'll even set you up a little more. They have these romanticized ideas around entrepreneurship, like entrepreneurs are some kind of hero or something.
Yeah.
Anyway, speak to the why, kind of how you push people in that direction.
I went to a marketing conference many years ago, and it was a funny conference because when you walk in, people introduce themselves by two things. They talk about how much money they make
That's weird.
and
But yeah.
how little they work. So this is very common in this conference. Right now, you look at. I can tell you're laughing because you know these types of conferences. This was the first and last time I ever went to one like this. So they go, "Hi, my name's blank. I sell blank, 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 and live in San Diego. I make 600 grand a year. I work 2.5 days a week. Oh, and I'm trying to get it down to 2. And after hearing this, I just want to run out of there and take a shower. I feel so gross.
Yeah.
What I learned was, as you start to talk more to these folks, they are doing very well. They go surfing on the beach, etc. And suddenly one day they see one of their competitors who starts to make more money than them, starts to have more customers. And suddenly they become number 2, number 3, number 5. And they get jealous. They want to do it. They say, okay, I got to redo my product. I got to come up with new marketing strategy. There's just one problem. Their entire identity is defined by how little they work. So their why is not to create the biggest impact. No, literally the way they introduce themselves is, I make X dollars and I work Y number of days.
Yeah.
So suddenly in order to compete with that person who's doing really well, they have to work more. They start working Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. They're like, oh, this kind of sucks. I don't have the skills to do this. And by the way, why am I killing myself doing this? I could just be at the beach right now, still having a very good lifestyle. Those people have now created a box. They've created a ceiling, and they can never exceed that ceiling because of their identity. So when you are thinking about starting a business or growing your income, it's so important to think beyond, I want to make $1 million. That's very common for entrepreneurs. They either say, I want freedom, or they have some dollar figure in their head. Look, when you start a business, it's definitely going to be challenging. I like to be transparent and tell people, starting a business is not easy. There's a reason that only a small amount of people do it. But I do believe it's worth it. Both of us we've been very fortunate to build businesses, be able to live lives that we want to live because of our businesses. If your reason is something as superficial or shallow as $1 million, hey, that might get you through the tough times. But I think there's something so much more meaningful about going deeper. I want to be able to pick my son or my daughter up from school every day at 3 p.m. That is meaningful. Okay. I want to use the money to be able to build another house for my parents. Or you know what? It doesn't always have to be for other people. It can simply be for you. I love fashion. I want to buy a beautiful coat every season without having to even think about the price. Equally valid. Those are so much deeper than words like freedom and dollar amounts like $1 million. That's why, whether it's in Earnable or in my book, I really dig deep on why you are doing this and force you to think about it. And when you go through it, there's actually nothing as joyful as thinking about, what are you doing this? And when you succeed, what will you be able to do? I love that.
Yeah. And it's not easy determining that. Like, we're not talking about like, oh, just take a half hour and mind map. I mean, I don't think I'm wrong in saying you could work on that little puzzle for a few weeks and really get crystal clear, do a little, ask people to probe what you think the reason is, have them call you on, on misdirected thinking. So I think I'm probably one of those that found it along the way, in that I thought I need to make $350 a month to get through school, become an accounting partner at a big firm, and I'm done, Yeah. And luckily I didn't stay in that box, right, of thinking. But sometimes I'm afraid. I guess one of the reasons that I don't like the number at times is I feel like I was very fortunate to need to achieve the goal of earning $350 a month for the next 2.5 years.
Totally. I did the same thing. It was like,
dude, you can do that any way. You could mow lawns and there was no insurmountable goal. Like, you got to make $4,000 like that every month. But there's something about that bite-sized amount that I liked.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, it's funny hearing you say that, because now, that sounds almost so quaint. 350, great, done. I had, when I started my blog as a college student, a lot of my friends were working at Google and they were like, hey, you should put AdSense on your blog. And my response to them was, I'm not going to put AdSense unless it at least covers my rent. Yeah. And once I graduated, my rent was $800 a month. And I was like, that's all I need. This was just purely for fun. I wasn't making any money off of it. Had I stuck to that number, we would not be here talking.
Oh, yeah.
And that ceiling, now that I look back at it, is so low. But at the time, it seemed high. And I think this is such a beautiful example of why having people around us that can challenge us is so critical. Having a few friends, I remember sitting at a taqueria in the Mission in San Francisco, and a friend of mine said, if I had 50,000 subscribers like you do, I would be making $1 million a month. And I'm sitting there eating my burrito, and it's just now I stopped chewing. I'm like, wait, what? And I had never thought that big. I didn't even think it was a business. It was just a hobby of mine. I was writing about personal finance. But my friend got me thinking bigger. And that is the beauty of having people around us that can push us and challenge us and help us think about things that we normally would not have.
Yeah. Do you think there's a way to figure out what's enough, or is that kind of a mirage as well? I mean, it like the way people will say, "Oh, when I earn that $120,000 a year, I'm set." And we know the study about you make a little. Everyone wants to earn double or whatever it is. So we know that that's a mirage. Once you hit that, you aren't satisfied. Have you had any thoughts around knowing when it is enough, or I don't know, when to pursue? God, I don't know. I mean, this is like Jesse therapy now, so whatever.
No, you know what? I'm so glad you're bringing it up because everybody else should be listening to your question. The first chapter in the financial life of many is just to accumulate something. Yeah. For some people, they're starting negative. They need to get to zero. For some people, they're starting at zero. They want to get to X. That's great. And following, using YNAB, using I Will Teach You to Be Rich, you can do quite well. It's very powerful stuff. What I find is that most people, once they've won the game of chapter one, they stop and they keep playing the same game for the rest of their life. They're focusing on $3 questions. They really should be asking $30,000 questions. And eventually, once they've won that game, they've got their asset allocation correct. They've automated their investments. They've negotiated their salary or started a side business. They've done these 5 to 10, what I call big wins.
Yeah.
Then they need to turn the page again. And this is when I tell people a rich life is lived outside the spreadsheet. Trust me, to all the personal finance nerds listening, you sitting there running another Monte Carlo analysis is not going to change your life. You already know because you ran it last Saturday when you were sitting at home. Ooh, I wonder what will happen now that my interest rate is 0.012% different. Nothing's going to change in your life. But now it becomes a question of actually crafting that rich life. Do I want to live in this city? Do we want to travel for 6 weeks per year? Do I want to ask my parents to move in? Send our children to soccer camp? Whatever. Those questions are deeply profound. That is when you start to think about enough. When you start to think about, what am I actually using this money for? In my experience now, having helped a lot of people make quite a bit of money, I help them negotiate $25,000 salary increases, start 6-7-figure businesses. A lot of them have done very well over the last 10, 15 years. They need help to start thinking bigger, start moving out from the spreadsheet, because it is so tempting and intoxicating to stay in the spreadsheet forever, but actually to push them and say, hey, you still travel the same way you traveled as when you were a college student. Maybe there's a different way to do it. You're still wearing the same clothes. You're still eating the same things. And I want everyone listening, I know the reaction right now, because we grow up saying money changes people. Notice that tone in my voice. Money changes people. Yeah, money does change people. It should change you. It allowed me to dream bigger. It allowed me to bring people with me. It allowed me to donate more money than I've ever donated before. So if you're working hard and you're following the system and you've invested and you're saving, the next step of that rich life is to really say, okay, I won that game. I won. What do I get to do now? And that is the beautiful part of imagining your rich life that I find so exciting.
Yeah. And what's interesting is it's comforting to stay and play the game that you're winning. It'd be like if I was playing, not soccer, playing football against a bunch of fourth graders, and I'm like, oh, I'm good. I keep winning. It's safe, right? It's safe to stay in that little thing, and keep tweaking the spreadsheet, and to venture out, you're almost like, well, I've proven that I can be a success. I mean, heaven help me if I accidentally fail here now, in even just crafting whatever that next chapter might be.
Yeah. I find it hard as I become more successful in one area of life. Man, it is so hard to start from ground zero in another one. It is really hard. You forget what it's like to be a beginner. Yeah. And it's uncomfortable. I mean, all of us think back to when you start learning to ride a bike, or if you were to try to pick up a foreign language today, it's uncomfortable. You feel stupid. It's humiliating. And so it's easier as we get older to keep doing what we've always done. And hey, I'm not saying everybody needs to go out and learn another language tomorrow. If that doesn't interest you, that's fine. Yeah. But you will have to change your focus when it comes to your money if you want to start tackling those tougher questions, the ones that never show up in cell C2 of your spreadsheet. Yeah. Those are uncomfortable questions, but they're really important.
And I think it's worth saying or kind of reemphasizing that first chapter of like the accumulation, the focus on if I just made my rent, my life would be changed. Like that is totally proper. I think people can sometimes, you read in Forbes or something and you're like, oh, why don't I dream big? It's like, well, because covering rent would be big for you. So it's all very relative. And I think you got to make sure that you're like where you're at as the reader, that you don't jump ahead, right?
That's hard. That's hard to acknowledge. I mean, I'm an okay skier. We used to go maybe once every 2 years to Tahoe, and I only later met a bunch of people who are awesome skiers. I'm like, how'd you guys get so good? And also, why am I not that good? And then they told me, yeah, we used to go skiing for like 2 weeks at a time. And I realized I have never stayed over while skiing because it was too expensive. My parents would drive us to Tahoe, and then we would drive back home at the end of the day. So you can only get so good if you're skiing once every year or 2 years. It's cool to imagine me going down all these black diamonds and chopping it up out there, but I still need to get the basics more in order. I need to go out there and practice more. I dream about that. Like, oh, that would be awesome. Look at that guy. He looks so cool. But if I truly want to do that, that means, going there, probably getting an instructor, putting the time in. And that foundational stuff, I think the more successful you want to be, and certainly the more successful you are, the more those foundational things really, really matter.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, speaking of kind of we mentioned failing earlier. You mentioned not a lot of people start businesses, even fewer succeed in that way. And we have the survivorship bias that is tough to tackle as we're looking at like the next big thing, or even small kind of local thing, like your friend nailed it on something and you're like, geez, how do I do that? So based on your helping people over so many years in starting their businesses, you must have seen a lot of failures as well. What are the leading reasons we'll call them side hustles, the leading reasons that these at first side hustles just fizzle?
I can identify people who are going to fail very quickly, often with their first email to me, before they've even bought Earnable or any program. It's not as easy to identify who will be hugely successful. Okay. That part, there's a lot of luck and there's a lot of indeterminate things going on. But failures are relatively easy to spot. Primarily, they ask the wrong question. The first question they ask before they've even bought is, how fast will I make my money back? That is look at that. You're laughing. I can see it.
It's just like so myopic. It's just so crazy.
Yeah. Think about that. And for somebody listening, they're like, well, Ramit, that's a valid question.
Yeah, ROI. That's very responsible.
Exactly. ROI. Exactly. So I'm spending $2,000 on this program. How fast am I going to make it back? Otherwise, I know it's a scam. And what you and I both know, because I could see both of us smiling, is it's such a small goal to only think about $2,000. To set your entire ceiling at making back ROI you've already set yourself up to fail. And there's one added element of there that's the biggest red flag of all, which is how fast will it work? People who are in a big hurry have a very high chance of failing. Same with people who want to lose weight or gain muscle in a really short amount of time. You're never going to do it. You've set yourself up for failure. I would much rather have somebody come in and say, look, I think I need to make a change. This is kind of what I'd like to look like, or I just don't feel comfortable here. I will do it for as long as it takes, and I'm going to put myself in your hands. Any personal trainer would love to hear that.
Oh, yeah.
And that is what I want to hear if somebody comes to start a business. I don't want people who have some arbitrary goal. And usually when I say why, they go, well, I've tried everything else and it hasn't worked, so this is my last shot. Not interested in working with that type of person. What I would love to hear is somebody saying, look, I've been following you for a long time. I've heard you on some podcasts. I know you've built a business that I admire. You've also helped 40,000 plus other customers. I'm willing to put in all the work and take all the time. I want to know that I have a good shot at making this work. That's an amazing student. That person has a very high chance of building a 6-figure or greater business because mentally they are ready to put the work in.
Yeah, absolutely. You mentioned sometimes that a lot of side hustles fail, and it has a lot to do with people's calendar, if I recall. Yeah. What did you mean by that?
They don't put it in their calendar. That's a huge
Like they
sign.
literally just don't calendar. Like that item, like that to do.
Well, they don't. First of all, some of them don't have a calendar at all. That's one
crazy.
Red flag.
Okay.
Yeah, both of us are like, what? But if they do, they don't put this in to their calendar. So what they're saying a lot. A lot of us say a lot without saying a word. If you wear a t-shirt to a wedding, you're saying a lot without saying a word. If you spend money on a program to start a business and you don't actually put in multiple times throughout the week to go through it consistently, you're saying a lot. And what you're really saying is, I don't take this seriously. I'll find time. I'll try to find time at some point. And then after 30 or 60 days and things haven't really gelled, you give up, you ask for a refund. Much more effective would be to say, you know what, this is a serious investment. Yeah, this is a lot of money. I'm going to take this seriously. I'm going to put in 3 blocks of 30 minutes or 1.5 hours, and I'm going to honor that time. Nothing is going to intercede with that. I'm going to respect myself and my calendar, and I'm going to put the work in. And I know that since other people have done it and they've gotten results, I can do exactly the same thing. And so I'm investing in myself by starting with my time. That is the sign of a successful entrepreneur to be.
Yeah. So I assume you still have a money back guarantee. Like if people come back and say, this didn't work. And I would assume you don't berate them either. You just kind of are like, well, I have other fish to fry, and they get the refund. So assuming all of that, there are people that will use the price, the purchase, the new gym membership, the new fitness item, the deal. They'll use that as their proof that they are serious. Mm-hmm. And that's actually not proof, right? Like, I mean, we know far too many people that'll put something on a card, and please don't, if you don't intend on paying it off, but that'll do that. And they're like, okay, now I'm showing I'm serious. And I would submit that is not a serious move yet.
Yeah. It's hard to understand when you're first starting out, because think about all the mental energy and anguish it takes to finally decide to pull out your credit card and put that money down. To most people when they're starting out, that is it. Like, okay, I did it.
Yeah.
But once you have successfully built a business, you know that actually that is the easiest step of all. And here's something that a lot of people don't say. Money's cheap. There's plenty of money out there. Plenty. And that can sound, I don't mean for that to sound demeaning. I don't mean for it to sound insulting. But if you've ever thought about, for example, buying a certain type of clothing for your baby, you could buy the generic version. You could buy generic diapers, etc. But you want the best. You want something that you trust. The same thing is true for you as an adult. If it's important and you can afford it, then you have the money. and lots of people have money. That part is cheap. What is much harder to find is follow through, is commitment to setting your calendar aside, to being willing to adopt the mind of a child and say, you know what, I don't know a lot about this. I don't know how to ski that well. So I'm going to hire an instructor and I'm going to get out there and fall down and look dumb. And that's okay. I'm going to learn and take the time. And eventually I'll be able to go down those black diamonds. That is much more rare. But the money part, I know it seems like a lot, but really that's just the first and tiniest step. I'm so happy that people decide to invest in themselves. What I really want them to do is say, okay, great. I made the first step of the next 100. Right. And now I am ready to keep working on it.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know if I ever told you this story. My dad, he was like a general general like attorney, just kind of contracts, and shared an office with other attorneys, and 2 paralegals set up a business. And they rented office space right there, which is a great idea. You're right by attorneys. It's like brilliant. And he remembers observing these young paralegals when they first started out, and they got a lease on an office. They had, you're going to laugh, but they had mugs.
Like with their logo on it?
With their logo on it. They had letterhead. They had a logo, which is
I don't have any of this. Yeah, that's amazing.
So Ramit, it gets a little better. They had break time. Like they had built all of this structure.
Yeah.
And it was like they were pretending. They were playing. My dad's like, it was the weirdest thing. I said, Dad, they were playing business. And he's like, yeah, they were playing business. How do you see your students even playing business versus progressing?
They play business. I love this question. They play business by doing everything except the one thing that's important. They play business by getting business cards, by even creating a website. I have students who make 6 figures. They have no website. Yeah. They don't need it. They play business by doing all this design work and alignment. I'm like, alignment on your website? Yeah, pixel pushing, bingo. Yeah. Who cares? And it's I don't say this to students, but deep down, one thing we know at IWT after being in business for a long time is we are but a moment in our students' day. I'm going to say that again because I want everybody to hear, we are but a moment in our students' days. And what that means is, we spend our entire careers and lives working on I Will Teach You to Be Rich and our book and Earnable. We're lucky if our students read one email 3 times a week for 20 seconds. Maybe they follow me on Instagram and they see a couple of jokes and some cool financial stuff. I would be happy, but that's maybe 90 seconds a week. We are but a moment in their day. And so when you remember that, you realize, do I want to spend my limited time pixel pushing? Or do I want to do the one thing that matters, especially early on, which is to find 3 people who are happy to pay? 3 people. It could be your grandma could be number 1. It could be your sister who's number 2, but number 3 is going to be somebody you didn't know yet. And that's when you know, ooh, I have something here. I'm onto something. You don't need a business card. You don't need a website. You don't need any of that ancillary stuff. Trust me, when you go through Earnable, one day you will have so much money you don't know what to do with. Then you can hire out amazing people and you can get all the business cards and mugs you want. But the best thing you can do early on is to find people who are interested, talk to them, listen to them, do some customer research, and then find those people who are happy to pay. That's when you know you've got a real business.
So I want to make sure you clarify happy to pay.
Yeah.
Like you said, would you pay or happily paying?
They are paying. Yeah. It's one, everybody's quote, happy to pay.
I love your next idea. I would totally buy that. And then it's like nothing.
Yeah. Here, everybody watch this. So I'm going to try to pitch Jesse, and Jesse's really nice. So watch what Jesse does
I don't want to hurt your feelings. All right, here we go.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, Jesse, I've been listening to this guy, Ramit, and I was listening to this podcast, and, he suggested that I try to ask some friends for advice. And, I really like eating spicy food, right? I can eat habaneros. I can eat all this stuff. And I know that there's a lot of people out there, they want to eat spicy food. So I want to create a course called 60 Days to Habanero. And I'm just not sure, but you think that's a good idea?
The name's interesting. I liked the 60 days, like gives them a fixed time.
Yeah. And I think people would like be into it, right? Like spicy food is like in these days. So yeah, it's cool, right?
I mean, I've never heard that idea before. That's for sure. It's unique. Absolutely.
Okay, this is so good. So let's zoom out. So for everybody listening, what you just heard was me coming in guns blazing with my cool idea. I've never talked to anybody about it, and I asked my friend Jesse, and Jesse doesn't want to hurt my feelings, so he's like physically leaning back as he like scrapes the bottom of the barrel to find something nice to say, and he goes, "Oh, that's interesting." And then me, novice entrepreneur with no Earnable, no support structure, my mind interprets it like this. Well, Jesse said it's a good idea, so I'm going to go build a business. Oh, I got to spend $5,000 on my website, business cards, SEO, da 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 da. But I've never found one person who says, "Amazing, Ramit. Here is my credit card. I want it right now." Those two things are profoundly different.
I was helping the son of a friend out, and in Utah, you have a lot of weddings, and well, you did, and then you have a lot of backyard weddings. Like I don't want to stereotype us, but we would definitely make you proud on the amount we don't spend on weddings. I'll just say that. So I know you're big on saving up for weddings, and if you're over here, you don't even have to save up that much. So what people do is they use backyards for weddings, and this I'll call him a kid, young man. He calls me. I talked to him for about an hour, and he's telling me he has kind of this interesting idea around like an Airbnb for backyards and weddings. And if you think about it, you're like, that's not bad. Like you've got like expensive places like Marriott's, and then you have these really cool, unique Airbnbs, and we could do the same thing. And he's in the wedding event space already. So I spend the next half hour trying to convince him to not build Airbnb for backyard weddings, but instead to maintain a spreadsheet and to just be this guy that gets phone calls all the time and then calls people with backyards. And for the life of me, I could not get him to just become this like mafioso connector of backyards and brides, you know? And I left, I mean, his dad was like, "Hey, thanks for calling with him." And my thought was, I failed. Like I could not get him away from the sexy, costs money. So if you're investing money, that means it's more real. I couldn't get him past that part of it, where I feel like the idea, maybe it seemed like he had zero risk if he would have just started being like, "Oh, I know a guy with a sweet backyard," and passing along money. Like it doesn't have to register with the state. Anyway, I left frustrated because one was hard and one was flashy.
Yeah.
And one, he would have learned a ton, and one, he burned 10 grand, you know?
It's, that's a great story because it really shows what's so common with first-time entrepreneurs. They often don't really want to listen. They want someone to confirm their idea. And they also would rather think about $1 million instead of starting by making $100. You know, I remember getting an email from a woman. I sent out an email saying, "What is something you claim you want to do, but you don't actually do it?" And she wrote back saying, "I claim I want to go for a run 5 times a week. I never do."
Yeah.
And I said, "Why don't you just go for a run once a week?" And then she wrote back saying, "Why would I do that? Running once a week doesn't do anything." And I thought to myself, she would rather dream about running 5 times a week than actually run once a week. Same thing with your friend, the young man. He would rather dream about building a venture-backed platform like Airbnb instead of, let me just start with one and build a spreadsheet, no costs, do some grunt work, grind it out a little bit, make $500, which I could turn into 5,000, then 50,000. Suddenly you have $250,000 and you're like, whoa, this is basically all profit. What can I do next to scale it up? That might take 6 to 12 or 18 months, but wow, the type of business you could build off of that would be absolutely incredible.
Yeah, and you'd build something that was solving the problem you didn't know you were going to be solving. I mean, what would he have eventually done? I don't know. I still think it's a pretty good idea. But
yeah, that is a great idea.
yeah. I mean, like these people just donate their backyards. Maybe it'd be like, "Hey, no, anyway, that's interesting. Okay. So people hear this podcast and they're thinking maybe, okay, I could get access to Ramit via Earnable. But there are also, I mean, you're big on having people, not just this community of like-minded people, but also some mentors. I'm a little bit of a sidestep here, but how would you recommend, because I fully am on board with that, how do you recommend people go about finding the right mentor?
I don't know that people really want a mentor.
What are they
I think
looking
they
for?
want to be able to pick up the phone and call Jesse or Ramit or Tim Ferriss or whoever it may be. But when you start talking about what it takes to build those relationships, I've found that very few people actually want to do it. And that's kind of depressing because my mentors in my life have been incredibly valuable to me. If you do want to do it, then I would say there are so many different ways. I've told people there's as simple things as post in my Instagram comments. And if somebody sounds really smart and interesting, say, hey, I really appreciate that. Can we DM a little bit? That could be turned into a mentorship relationship. I also like to email people who I read about, who are doing something interesting. And I usually wait 2 to 3 days after some article comes out. And I just say, hey, I really appreciated it. Here's what I learned. This is why I think you're great. And by the way, this is a little bit about me. I'd love to stay in touch. That's awesome. You can build a relationship that way. There are many, many ways, whether it's at work, if you have somebody senior who you admire, offer to take them out to lunch. Hey, I just love to learn about your career. You've made so many interesting moves. No agenda, just want to learn how you did it. $10, pay for their lunch, boom. If you can't see them in the office, do it over Zoom. Yeah. Send them delivery, boom. There are lots of ways, but the key with a mentor is it takes time. And number one, you need to go through a lot of people because your mentor is evaluating you as well as you evaluating them. You want to find someone you actually like. And I guess the third part of finding a mentor is that you have to prove why you are willing for them to spend time on you. Remember, they probably have resources you don't. Most mentors in general are going to be a little bit more successful or further along, but they don't need you to give them money. What they want is to see somebody who asks great questions, follows up. Hey, I took your advice 2 weeks ago. This is what I did. This worked out great. I know you suggested I do X. I didn't do that, but I took your advice and I switched it to Y, and here's what I learned. Thank you so much. That is an amazing mentee right there. Mm-hmm. So for the few people who do want to invest in finding a mentor or frankly mentors, because I think many successful people have 5+, that's how you go about doing it.
Yeah, you got to view that kind of with a very long view. One of my best mentors is one that I didn't think was going to be one, and now we're years along, and I'm like, man, that's super valuable. Yeah, trying to find someone that's even a step or two ahead can be useful, but what I've found is a lot of times on the ask, it's too needy. When people come and say, "Hey, I would love to do this or this," I
what's an example?
I mean, the other day it was just very little intro, and then just could I have 30 minutes of your time? And I thought, I only know you from an email. No, I need more context, and I need you to work on me for a little bit.
Talk more about that. Work on me means what?
Prove it. It sounds a little selfish, but I'm looking for something interesting as well in that relationship. And what's fun is when you find the right mentee, then they give back to you in a way that's unique. And I don't know if I could put my finger on it exactly, but it's rewarding. It's just rewarding. And it's not money and it's not lunch, I should say it's not the value of the lunch at all, right? Sometimes people are like, "Oh, I bought him lunch." And you're like, no, man.
He can buy his own lunch. He or she
it was
can
the
buy
30 minutes. Yeah, it was the 30 minutes.
Yeah.
That was
I think what you just did was really a gift to people listening, because for just a moment, you took us inside the mind of a busy person. And I don't think it was selfish at all. I think it was really candid, which is, I don't need money. I don't need lunch. That's a nice gesture. If you want to order lunch, that's fine. But I'm looking for someone who's interesting. And because your time is at a premium. And yet with that said, busy people love to mentor great people. They crave it. They absolutely crave it. Why? They want to stay connected to up and comers. I'm not talking about age. You can be a mentee at age 20. You can be a mentee at age 60. Okay. Your mentor can be older or younger than you. That has nothing to do with it. They want to engage with up and coming people. They want to stay fresh in their mind. And most of all, it's a human need. We want to share advice. Just think about your grandmother, grandfather, parents. You ask them advice, their face lights up. That's the same for mentors. They want to share what they've learned along this long journey of life. But you, as the potential mentee, need to earn it. You need to go slow. Don't ask for everything up front and prove why you are actually worth it. If you can do that, wow, you can build an amazing set of relationships.
Yeah. Let's do a little bit of devil's advocate here. So I don't even remember the podcast I was listening to, and I'm actually making the point of what I'm about to say right with that. But the idea that we, with so much information at our fingertips, and you alluded to this at the very beginning, kind of given the pitch on Earnable, there's so much, we'll call it infinite. It's functionally infinite. And I also know that you are an optimizer, or at least a deep thinker, so that you don't have a lot of misfires. I don't think you're not like a latte optimizer. We know that. But like you talked about your heavy hitters, the big things. That's an optimization rule, essentially. A little bit of an algorithm you're using. So we rely on algorithms for all kinds of things, and we rely on experts for all kinds of things. And the premise was we might be over-reliant. We might be spinning our wheels. I don't know if I would have been able to start YNAB if I had access to all of the information that makes me feel like there is a correct answer for every single little minutia that I have to deal with. What does this look like? What should I do here? What font does one use? Name your thing. Everyone's an expert. You have access to the most knowledge of any humans ever in the history of the world. So we don't think for ourselves, and we just freeze. It freaks me out. I'm like, I don't know if I could have started YNAB. Not to mention Netflix binges, you know?
Right.
So, yeah.
Okay, wait. That's a profound point about being overwhelmed with information. But first I have to know, what should I watch on Netflix next?
I am proud to tell you, I have no idea.
Oh, what?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I've really backed off on it. I did watch The Social Dilemma because that went around quickly, and it was like a pretty cool like doomsday documentary.
Did you know I'm in that? Did you recognize my face?
No, tell me where. I'll go back and watch it again.
I'm in there. It's I don't remember the exact timestamp. It's literally for like 1 second, but they have a picture of me as somebody who went through this course at Stanford. My background's in
BJ Fogg was in
exactly
there, right?
BJ Fogg's one of my mentors. Yeah.
That's right.
In fact, he's one of my mentors, came to my wedding. He's a good friend and a mentor. So anyway, that's an interesting choice. I watched that too. Okay. So back to the devil's advocate question.
Because we talked about finding experts to help us out. Yeah. And now I'm kind of saying, well, man, too many experts.
Well, I have two thoughts on that. First of all, I think that in a world of infinite information, it's becoming a core life skill to be able to discern what is true and what is false.
Oh gosh, yeah.
That is a huge, huge deal. Recently I did a post about raising taxes on the rich. And if you guys are interested, you can find it on my IG page. But I've gone through the data. I've read a lot of books. I know what it's like also because I would be somebody whose taxes would go up. And there are so many arguments tossed around that are frankly not true. But you have to actually understand how to read statistics and how to go into the data, because it is very emotionally alluring to just get angry and say, oh, this or oh, that. But when you look at the data, you are quite surprised by what you find. So learning how to tell the truth in a world of infinite information where people are incentivized to lie and to polarize arguments is becoming a core competence. If you can't do that, I think that's a really, really tough skill. So how do you do that? Well, that's larger than the scope of this podcast. But I think that is something I see. I see people, for example, making a false assumption about some personal finance or tax issue and spending the next 30 years thinking that they're right, but the data is quite obviously the opposite. So that's one. The second thing I would say is when it comes to a world of infinite information, a second core skill is to know what matters and what does not. In I Will Teach You to Be Rich, I point out that saving on $3 lattes and optimizing your entire world around that is pointless. You would be better off simply making one different decision per year, which is to raise your savings rate from 7% to 8%, 8% to 9%. That would make you hundreds of thousands of dollars more than any amount of lattes you could buy in your entire life. Think about that point because it's deep. There are certain decisions you can make once a year or even once in your life that are more important than making 10,000 different decisions. Your savings rate, where you work, who you marry or partner with. Wow, that's deep. And yet most of us are consumed with minutia. So those two core skills that I argue are going to be highly important in a world of infinite information. Number one, telling what's true and what's false. Number two, telling what's worth paying attention to and what's not.
Yeah, we're talking about accuracy and magnitude, really. I would say also, if there was like you enjoy the shortcut, like the way to kind of get to, I guess it's a heuristic, really. There was a book I read probably 7 years ago called Traction. And I read it. I liked it. You've probably read it. It's good. And then I came back to it later. I did a few of I kind of cherry picked a few things from the book and I was like, that's cool. I like how they did this and that. Then I think it was about 2 years in, I had this realization, like, if this is the doctor's prescription, I'm not going to take like one of the 10 pills. I'm just going to do the whole prescription. And I did that. And I didn't research if Traction was the right book. I just kind of decided it's probably right enough, but then I went all in on that. And after 3 years of running it as prescribed, I could then kind of say, I've learned at this point, I have actual experience under my belt, and we've tweaked it and made it our own.
So this is Traction by Gino Wickman, the entrepreneur, EOS. Yeah, we do the same thing in our business. How funny. Independently, we did it. I don't even think we talked about this before. What I love about that is you had a big business before you read Traction. Like your business was cranking. It was doing well. Think about how humble you had to be. And I hope everyone listening is picking up on this. Jesse had a great business. He was humble enough to say, wow, I'm going to put myself in the hands of this author and this EOS, this system, operating system, and I'm going to do everything it says. It would be so easy for him to be skeptical. That won't work. That one isn't right for me, etc. But the sign of a true master is knowing when to be humble enough to put themselves in the hands of somebody else. We did exactly the same thing. We had a business and we said, okay, we have some challenges here. We need to figure this out. Okay, this one has solved it. And we talked to a couple of friends. They were like, oh my God, this is it. But do everything they say. Trust the system. Just like somebody going in for personal training, just like somebody coming to Earnable to learn a business, the best people, the people who like you, who made it work in their business, they first go all in. And once they are good enough, once they've mastered it, then they go, okay, you know what? Now that I know the rules, I can break a couple of these because they're not quite right for me. But you spend 2-3 years first just absorbing everything in it. So you can hear me getting excited because we both recognize the humility it takes to put yourself or your business in another operating system's hands. But that is what I think both of us want for people, whether they are learning about you need a budget, whether they're learning about Earnable, or I Will Teach You Rich. You got to find those people who are ready to learn. And those people, it's so exciting to me because it's almost destiny that they are going to be successful because they approach it with the right mindset from day one.
Yeah, you just take the prescription. It's almost like, okay, we have so many experts, just pick one.
Yeah.
Just pick one and make it gospel. Like be a disciple, not just like this kind of, I don't know, at the buffet. Yeah. I was at a Holiday Inn the other day and you're like, like they're like, we have breakfast every morning. You're like, I'll bet you have breakfast. And then you walk around, you're like, what am I supposed to sample from here? But pick one and then just go for it. And there's some, I think it biases you towards action when you can kind of put the decisions aside. Be like, well, it says, and then, you know, you have a team member that's like, well, why do we do that? And you're like, well, because the book.
Yeah.
And then you're like, we're good, you know?
It narrows your options. And in a world of infinite choice, you actually need to be able to narrow your options. And this is kind of hard for people to swallow. It's a hard pill to swallow, but sometimes choosing your teacher or book or coach is actually less important than following through with whatever the person you choose says. Let me say that again because it's counterculture.
Well, you are one of them. So people like, they got to listen to this for a moment.
Yeah, listen carefully because I'm going against my own interest with what I'm saying right now, but this is the truth. In a world of infinite choice, you have a million coaches, you have a million books. It is so tempting to spend your entire life deciding between and among those million books. What would be way more effective would be do a couple of days or a couple of weeks of research, fine. Look at the reviews, talk to some folks, pick one, and then do everything they say. So you can pick Earnable and I Will Teach You to Be Rich if you want to learn about money and business. Great. I'd love to have you if you come in with the right mindset. Pick somebody else. That's also fine with me. But what's more important than who you pick is how you approach it mentally. If you walk in saying, that's not going to work because I'm left-handed and I live north of the equator, you've already failed. You just don't know it. But if you walk in saying, you know what? I made an 85% educated choice. I feel roughly confident about who I chose. Now I'm giving myself over to that person and I'm going to trust everything they say in their system. You have a very good chance at success.
Yeah. I did a podcast a while ago where I was thinking about this a lot. And I had the experience with barbell coaching where I had done years of CrossFit and then I was like, that's not doing it for me anymore. And I thought I could squat. I thought I could deadlift. I got an expert coach. Her name's Ness. And she's Polish, so I felt like that really fit. You know, I was like, man, okay, we got this. And she's like a professional ballerina, and then she got into barbell training. Interesting story from her. But she was a pro, and you could tell. I learned more and just kind of saying, okay, Ness, you tell me everything. You tell me how much to eat. You tell me exactly how many reps to do, how many sets. I would go to her with a question, and it was almost like, she would teach me because I was curious. I wanted to know why. I was very clear with her. I said, Ness, when I ask you a question, it is not because I'm questioning you. I just want to learn. And she was like, thank you for clarifying, because it's weird when you'll have someone who's paying a premium price for a premium service that then comes in and is like, hey, I've paid you all this money because I wanted to let you know what I already know. It's like, man, you have this backwards. So it was cool to be able to hand myself to Ness and say, teach me. And my word, I made in a year more progress than I even thought would be possible in my lifetime.
And you were already quite advanced. You've been doing this for years.
Well, the irony is I thought I knew so much. Mm-hmm. And then she's like, well, let's see you squat. And I'm like, I literally was like, oh man, when Ness sees my video, because we did this all online, when Ness sees my squat video, she's just going to be like, dude, you are amazing. You are one unbelievable individual. And so I send her this video and I'm looking at the video before I send it. I'm like, those squats are flawless. They're perfect. 315 for reps. Like I'm strong. I'm strong pound for pound. I give it to her. Her comment back is, all right, we have something to work with. And
oh my God, what? Amazing.
Anyway, it was such a cool experience. And so handing yourself to and she didn't have to be the perfect coach. Maybe she wasn't even perfect, but my word, handing myself to her and just taking that dose. Yeah. It was like in that realm of my life, it was phenomenal.
That's amazing. I want to share what it's like from the other side of the table, because I had a student join one of my programs and they proceeded within the first week to send me 2 emails. They had caught a typo somewhere. They had caught some issue. No. And these were lengthy, multi-paragraph emails in the first week, hey, Ramit, I want to give you some suggestions. And I noticed this and that. Listen, I appreciate somebody pointing out a typo. That's nice. But these were lengthy. And I finally I replied, thank you. I replied to the second one and I said, I appreciate your email again. Do you mind if I give you some feedback? And she said, of course. She was very welcoming. I said, are you usually the friend who offers feedback to other people? And she said, yes. How'd you know? And I wrote back to her and said, it's time for you to be the student. And that got her. she realized that she was running the same script she'd always run. She's clearly smart. She clearly has good opinions and a great eye. She caught things I hadn't caught, and that was valuable. But that's not the point of her being a student. She's not there to critique me. I'm doing fine. I'm helping a lot of people start businesses. And while I appreciate the typo, I had to gently show her that it's time for her to adopt the identity of a student. And now some people come in like you, they're like, teach me everything. I'm going to ask you all these questions. Sometimes, especially with smart people, they're so used to being smart that it's difficult to shift back into the mind of a student. And so I want to encourage everybody, especially those really smart ones listening who often offer critiques, who are very valued at work, et cetera. When you go to learn from a coach or Earnable or an instructor or product, it's really hard but important to shift your identity into a student, because students learn. Students learn, and that is what helps you grow really, really fast.
Yeah. On the personal side, where are you a student at this moment? Like, what's Ramit?
Fitness, for sure.
You're still running the fitness.
Yeah. Absolutely. Fitness is like, I feel like I'll be a student for the rest of my life. It's just, I have so much to learn. And the more I learn, the more I realize how little I know. You know, sometimes I see someone working out, doing this really very odd exercise. And you're like, either this person is crazy or they know something I don't know. And 50-50, it could be that they're working a tiny muscle I never even thought of, or they just don't know what the hell they're doing. But I'm curious, and I need to see more patterns before I can even consider myself close to really good. So I would say that's definitely one example. What about for you, besides squatting?
Well, what's funny is I actually I've subjected myself to this barbell certification course from where Ness works.
Cool.
And because I have no desire to actually coach people in that regard. But yeah, I just kind of am geeking out on it. And so I'm learning about biomechanics and force vectors. I have no idea what I'm doing. Like,
love it.
They're like, it's the sign of this. I'm like, sign? What was that again? Like, it was so long ago.
Isn't that cool though, to put your mind in that student mindset?
Yeah, it's fun. Like my granddad, he's 95. And the other day I walked into his bedroom. He and my grandma are now to the point where they're doing the separate bedroom thing. I don't know when that happens, but they're there. So and I walk into his bedroom and I'm looking, and he has this guitar like on a stand, almost like it would be decorative. Mm-hmm. But then I noticed that there's a music stand next to it with an open book and like a clothespin. And I'm like, Grandpa, whose guitar? And he's like, oh, I'm just trying to learn a little
At
guitar.
95. Man, that's an inspiration, man, to both of us, I think.
Anyway, it's just like you be a lifelong learner. Pick something. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. It'll just keep life interesting, you know? So
it's hard to continue to push yourself to be a beginner, but wow, it is rewarding. I remember I was reading a product strategy book less than a few days ago, and I find myself sitting there on my couch doing a math exercise in the book to try to optimize pricing for a pizza restaurant, as if I own a pizza restaurant, and I'm trying to figure out what's the optimal price for this like cheesy bread and pizza bundle. And I'm sitting there adding numbers like 9 + 4, and I'm back to basic arithmetic, and I got it wrong, and I had to check the answer key and do it right. But I was like, wow, it's been a long time since I've done something like this. And it just unlocked that part of my mind that I used to engage with more for things like basic math problems. So was it hard? Yeah, it was hard. And I felt pretty stupid getting it wrong multiple times. But after I did it a few times, I started to understand it better. And I want to keep feeling that throughout the rest of my life.
Absolutely. At YNAB, one of our core values is passionate pursuit of growth. So in the interviewing process, we'll ask not even sneaky questions like, what are you learning? What do you read? You know, and you can learn a ton from people's answers there. But at the end of the day, if you surround yourself with people at work, at home, whatever, that just kind of passionately, not like a zealot, but just passionately, consistently pursuing growth, you'll find that they're just more interesting to have around you. I think Earnable would be, for a lot of people, are we talking, just to kind of wrap things up, because I've kept you for a long time, are we talking about brand new, making some money already? Is there a cutoff where you're like, no. Like, should Jesse join Earnable? That kind of thing, you know?
Jesse probably should not join Earnable. Plus, you and I text occasionally with our business specific questions for each other, which I enjoy. I think if you have thought about growing your income, you know, you've done your managing your costs. You're like, hey, I want to earn some more money. If you've thought about doing it on the side or even doing it full time, Earnable would be great. If you're not sure about the idea and you want to learn specifically, how do I sell? Maybe you're not confident. Maybe you specifically want to know, hey, how do I make 6 figures a year via Instagram, right? We cover all these specific sales calls, Instagram, email. We show you the actual words and sales campaigns we use. And then most importantly, if it's time, right? If you want a community, if you want help, specific instruction, but most importantly, deep down, if you've been reading stuff for a long time and you're like, I'm ready to do it, I think then Earnable would be an amazing option for people to use.
Awesome. So where do they go? Give us the just kind of the end of the show push.
Sure. You can find it at iwt.com/earn. And you can just get on that wait list right there. We open it up frequently. Again, it's iwt.com/earn. And I would love to meet you inside the program. And I think it can really change your life.
Excellent. Here's a postscript. 3-letter domain. Which squatter had that you finally had to, because I know how that movie ends. I've been there. Like, what happened?
Well, I'll tell you one thing. When we try to buy a domain, we don't use my name.
Oh gosh,
because if they look if they look up who I am, the price is going up. So we have a playbook internally for how we do it. But we were very lucky. IWT, short for I Will Teach You to Be Rich. We were very fortunate, and we feel good about that.
Yeah, that's nice. Nice. That was a nice snag. I mean, how many 3-letter domains are there in existence now? I mean, there's just, I had to struggle with the 4. When I had to buy that, you talk about all things kind of relative. And when I had to buy that 4-letter deal, it was interesting because I wanted it early on, and the guy, I don't remember what he wanted, like $4,000, I think. And I was like, oh my gosh, no, I cannot do this. But and this was like 2004, probably.
That's early. Wow.
Yeah, it was way early. 5, 6, 7. I don't know. But somewhere along the way, YNAB started picking up steam. And I noticed that this squatter had updated the site to be a little more financially clickable, like AdSense, the whole deal. This is back. I mean, so funny. And so I actually, as a little bit of leverage, I wrote and said, hey, if you're pretending to be like, you can't do that, right? Like someone couldn't pretend to be Ramit and it's illegal now, thankfully. So I was able to use a little bit of leverage, but I still think years later, I think I ended up having to pay $12,000 for it. And I feel like I got it for a steal, and now we have
that. Is a good price though, relative to everything it could have been. I mean, it's a great domain. It's so good. Both of us have a relatively long original domain.
Yeah.
You need a budget. I Will Teach You to Be Rich.
People just have a nap before they're done typing my domain. They're just like, I'm tired. Do I really need whatever I was about to write here? I don't even know if I do.
You don't even know how many of my friends have told me, like, dude, you need to change your name. Like a lot over the. And I'm like, maybe you're right, but now I've gotten so used to typing I Will Teach You to Be Rich.com. We're stuck with it.
Yeah. I mean, Julie named it, and I'm like, no, I'm going to keep it. It's like that's her stamp on here. So, and people are like, here's something for your future students. How much research did we put into buying YouNeedABudget.com? I'm sitting at our card table. This is not hyperbole. Literal card table / dining room table / formal dining room table, just depending on which kind of paper plate you were using. But we're sitting there, and she's behind me with Porter, who's brand new. And I'm like, what should we name the business? I'm like on randomregistrar.com, whatever.
Uh-huh.
And she's like, you need a budget. And I'm like, okay, type buy, That's the amount of research we did to name the company. And I think now remember, I only wanted to make $350 a month. So it's all relative, but you can look back, and sometimes I'm just glad we didn't get hung up on the name for 6 months. You know what I'm saying?
Yes. So. I know. I mean, as the guy who did the same thing with I Will Teach You to Be Rich. And yes, I was sober when I picked that name. if I were to do that today, I'm sure I would involve a naming firm and I would do all this other stuff. But there's something beautiful about simplicity. There's something beautiful about starting from nothing and just moving fast. And I think sometimes as beginners, you look at it as a weakness, like, oh, I wish I had all those cool things. But as a beginner, you can fall down and nobody notices because nobody's watching. So if I could say anything for beginners, it's embrace the beauty of being small, of nobody knowing who you are, of being able to make mistakes and change your positioning and change your Instagram and website. Nobody cares. As you get bigger, it becomes way more complex. There is really beauty in being a beginner. And you can hear it in my voice and yours, Jesse. And I just hope, we can encourage more people to start and not wait or overthink it.
Yeah. Awesome. That's a nice way to end it. So IWT.com/ what was after the slash?
Earn. IWT.com/earn.
All right. Excellent. Ramit, always a pleasure.
Thank you, Jesse. This was a blast.
All right, everybody. I hope you enjoyed that very casual conversation with Ramit Sethi of IWillTeachYouToBeRich.com. I hope that there's at least one little thing, one little bit that you can take out of that. We talked a lot about how infinite information can really freeze you. I hope that podcast full of information doesn't just kind of paralyze you. Pick one thing, and then take action if you found it resonated. If you weren't looking to start a business, you probably didn't make it this far anyway, so we should be just fine. Until next time, follow YNAB's 4 rules and you will win financially. You've never budgeted like this.